What is going on, everyone? Welcome to WreckTalk, and another week of football is in the books. It's in the books, so you know what that means. We need some more power rankings. There's nothing I love more than ranking stuff. What about you? By the way, I guess I'm kind of doing this. This is kind of a Miami-like shirt. This is the closest I'll come to giving Miami any credit, because the Wreck, you're a bunch of cockroaches. All right, don't you ever forget that. I went to Miami on my part of my honeymoon. Which was a waste of time. That marriage didn't work out. And in the hotel room, there was like greasy, half-eaten chicken legs and stuff. It was pretty gross. But, you know, some people's star shines too bright. Some girls don't like you looking better than them. They don't want to see you ball. If you know that reference, you're a real one. Anyways, let's minimize me here and get to ranking some teams. Oh, I selected the wrong thing. I can fix it, guys. I can fix it. All right. I actually made this template. So it's, I think, WreckTalk's power rankings. If you go on Tier List Maker, you should be able to see it. First, let's go over last week's. What were last week's rankings? So, looks like, no surprise, we had Miami 1, Clemson 2, Syracuse 3, Cal 4, Boston College 5, Pitt 6, Louisville 7, Georgia Tech 8. Right behind them, North Carolina 9, NC State 10, Virginia Tech 11, Stanford 12, Duke 13, SMU 14, Virginia 15, Wake 16, and then we had Florida State 17. So there's last week's rankings. Just in case you wanted to know. Let's get into it this week. Now, let's get some easy ones off the board first. Obviously, I think Miami's the number one. The thing is, I can't say they're for sure a national title contender until they play someone. And I think the easiest game on their schedule is maybe Louisville. I mean, they have a butter soft schedule. So, look, that's the reason you take tests in school, to measure your ability. The way you measure teams' ability is they need to play a good team. So, if they just body Louisville, of course, I don't know what Louisville's got, then maybe I'll move them up. Virginia. Now, Virginia, is Virginia, no, they're not undefeated. They beat Wake, didn't they? No, they lost to Maryland, so they're 2-1. They had a big come-from-behind victory against Wake last week. They let Maryland beat them 27-13. They're still a bad look. Like, Tony Elliott, does he survive this year? Maybe. I guess it depends. But no one's thinking much about Virginia. Though, shout out to Wahoo Brad. I do like Wahoo Brad. Unfortunately, Virginia just not a very good team. Boston College. So, Boston College has a fantastic showing against Missouri. I guess I can't say fantastic. They had a really good showing against Missouri. Missouri ends up beating them, 27-21, I think. They gave Missouri a hell of a scare on the road. Yeah, 27-21. I've been telling people since we played them last year, I think I mispronounce his name every time. That's nothing new. I mispronounce Georgia Tech's DC his name all the time. Castellanos is a real one. I was even saying this on the live show last night. Like, Castellanos is not the best thrower. He's a good runner, but he's not the best runner. He doesn't have the best quickness or the best decision-making abilities. He's just a playmaker, though. He's just a dude that makes plays. He's a dude you want on your team. I think they're an above-average Power 4 team still, though. I mean, losing to a top 10 team by 7 isn't the worst showing. Cal, I think Cal's undefeated. Aren't you, Cal? Who'd you play? They played San Diego State, who's not an awful group of 5 team. They're a part of this. I don't know if we've even talked about it in a video. The new Pac-12 with like San Diego State, Colorado State. They're all state schools. They might as well just call it the All-State Conference. They're not they're probably not going to get 12 teams worth a darn to be in it. And I do feel bad for like Oregon State and Washington State. But beating San Diego State 31-10 is a good win. Cal undefeated. And I think for that reason, you've got to have Cal above Boston College here. So some Cal people were saying, hey, you're sleeping on us. And they've beat Auburn as well. And I think, oh boy, they play Florida State next week. And you got to take Cal. You got to take Cal in that game, right? So we'll put Cal there. Clemson. Who did Clemson play this week? Were they on a bye this week? Yeah, I don't see them on here. Clemson has a bye. Here's the thing. They do have a loss. It was the number 1 team in the country. Now the number 2 team in the country after Georgia had an awful showing against Kentucky and some nobody called Brock Vandergriff. I still think they're a contender, though. Like on a neutral site, they're favored. They're favorites against Cal or Boston College, right? So those rankings are probably not changing. Duke, I said I feel bad for Duke because they got completely gutted. I saw when Elko was doing work over there, Mike Elko, someone was going to hire him, and that whole team was going to be gutted, which is what ended up happening. Duke's a team that kind of scares me. We played Duke this year. Duke's has shown some life. They came from behind against UConn. I don't think they played a conference game yet, but Duke's a team that's going to beat somebody that they're not supposed to beat this year. And I just hope it's not Georgia Tech. It would be a very Georgia Tech thing to do, to lose to Duke at home. I'll put them in average right now. But good win against UConn. Undefeated. If you're a Duke fan, you got to feel pretty good, right? Now, I haven't seen a single Duke football fan anywhere on the internet or on YouTube. So I don't know if they exist, but if you do, I'm sure you're happy. We're going to save Florida State for the end, as always. As always. Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech beats up on VMI. Not a lot you can take as a Georgia Tech fan from that. I don't even think, though, I can say until I see Georgia Tech play Louisville, and they do play Louisville next week, that they're above average Power 4 team, though I would put them. Can I put them above Duke? Duke's undefeated. Georgia Tech has a better win, but they do have a loss. Here's the thing. Georgia Tech's favored over Duke, though, on a neutral site. Georgia Tech's favored over Duke if they play them in Durham. So I'm going to put them above Duke. If I'm a homer for that, or if anyone disagrees, comment about it below. Louisville. Louisville's undefeated. They're on a bye last week, but they've played 2 nobodies. So Louisville's a 10.5. I think the line might have even moved to 11.5 if people are telling me right. Favored over Georgia Tech. Now, Georgia Tech does have to go to Louisville and play them. If you're a Louisville fan, tell me what you think. I'd be terrified to be a 2-score favorite against Georgia Tech in this game. I think that plays into Georgia Tech's hands. Yes, Georgia Tech got, really embarrassed by Syracuse, but Georgia Tech's flaws have already been exposed. Louisville hadn't had any of that. Now, Louisville's going to have better film on Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech is a menace, being a road dog, playing an ACC game. I don't think he's lost one to Florida State in his interim year. I think that's it. Key's an absolute menace on the road, especially when he's an underdog. You got to put him above Boston College here, though. They haven't played anyone, but they are winless. NC State. Now, NC State got the absolute life beat out of them by Tennessee last week, or the week before that. They play Louisiana Tech 30. They beat them 30-20. If you're an NC State fan, do you really feel good giving up 20 points to Louisiana Tech, beating them only by 10? I imagine, did that even cover the line? Probably not. And the thing was, they were down in this game at half, 17-6. NC State has got to be really happy that Virginia Tech and Florida State have way underperformed, because they would be the laughingstock of the ACC right now. I'm going to say they're just a straight up bad Power 4 team. I mean, until they get a good win, they're not moving out of the bad Power 4 teams. McCall has not looked great. They have not played great as an entire team. I'm not afraid at all to play them on a Thursday night. Now, we both have byes in November. I think that's the second to last game of the season for both teams. I'm not worried about NC State at this moment. Pitt. Now, Pitt, what do they call that rivalry? I'm not a Pennsylvania person or a West Virginia person, so I don't know. Pitt's kind of sneakily looked really good. Now, Narduzzi did bitch about refs in that game. I didn't see any of it, so maybe it was as bad as the LSU South Carolina game. I don't know. Man, I'd be tempted to put Pitt above Cal and Louisville. I'm going to put them. You could really put them either or here. I'm going to put them above Cal because I think Auburn is not very good. And I think Pitt has better wins, both undefeated, Pitt and Cal, but I'm a little bit more impressed with Pitt up to this point. Shout out to Pitt. You know, Narduzzi kind of pulling a rabbit out of the hat this year. I don't think anyone was thinking a ton about Pitt, but they're undefeated up to this point. They beat West Virginia 38-34. Let's see, that game was tied at half. It was tied going into the fourth, and Pitt just scored 4 more points than they did in the fourth. So shout out to Pitt. SMU. Who in the world did SMU play this week? Are they on a bye this week? It looks like they are. Here's the thing. I think SMU, are they undefeated? I'll have to look. SMU 2024 schedule. No, they're not. They lost to BYU last week, 18-15. Boy, they were supposed to be some kind of, offensive juggernaut and, turn the ACC upside down. I love that, these teams that never played a down of football and as a member of the ACC thought they were just going to come in here and run things. Looks like Cal's the team that's doing that more so than SMU. Now, I don't think either one of them have played an ACC game yet. Are they better than NC State? Probably. I'll put them as a bad Power 4 team, slightly better than NC State. But I don't really have much to say about SMU. Everyone's like, oh, just because they got all this money in their program and they raised $2 trillion bazillion overnight. It don't mean anything for this year is the thing. And people who were saying they were a dark horse for the ACC championship are all brain dead zombies that had a role to play in the Walking Dead show. Stanford. Another team that I don't know anything about, and I don't think many other people do either. Were they on a bye this week? How many teams were on a bye this week? I guess they were. Let's see. What is Stanford? What are they looking like these days? They are 1-1 with a loss to TCU and a good win over Cal Poly. Now, they do play... did they play Syracuse? Yep, they're on a bye this week. They play Syracuse this week. Syracuse will absolutely dismantle them. In fact, I think they're worse than NC State. They might be worse than Virginia. It's really irrelevant where you put them. I will put them above Virginia, though. Does it really matter? Now, Syracuse, a team that I've been high on since Tech played them. I think that they're slightly behind Pitt only because Pitt's just played slightly better opponents up to this point. So I guess Syracuse will drop a spot. But look, Syracuse, Syracuse plays Miami at the end of the year. I think that's going to be an interesting game. Syracuse also has a pretty easy schedule, relatively speaking. Me moving them back doesn't mean that I'm any less high on Syracuse. It's just I think Pitt's been a little bit more impressive up to this point. Are all these teams above average, though? Hard to say. We might switch some of this up. Freaking Ice Maker has to go off for 40 seconds while I'm doing a... Chill out, Ice Maker. I'm doing WreckTalk right now. North Carolina's undefeated, but they have the softest schedule in the ACC. They should have lost to Minnesota. You know, Minnesota decides to trot out a doofus left-footed kicker who misses a kick, shoot off fireworks anyways. It's pretty rare that a team plays somebody that I've never even heard of before. NC Central Eagles, is that who they played? Let's go to North Carolina. North Carolina Central. Never heard of them. No one outside the state of North Carolina has ever heard of NC Central, but North Carolina knows they're a garbage team, so they go ahead and schedule all these nobodies. They get a big win, 45-10. North Carolina's undefeated. Here's the thing. I think they're a bad Power 4 team, but because they're undefeated, I've got to have them here. They're not a better team than Georgia Tech, though. I don't care if Georgia Tech has a loss to Syracuse. North Carolina's not a better team than Georgia Tech. At what point will they be exposed? Probably when Georgia Tech beats them. Georgia Tech will beat North Carolina as bad as North Carolina beat NC Central State A&M there. In fact, I think every week the worst tier is going to have a different name. It's been Kaka Poo Poo Pee Pee after a bunch of ignorant comments and call-ins from Florida State fans. Today, the worst tier will be Jeff Collins Pool Noodle. You know, shout out to North Carolina for hiring. You know, North Carolina said if we can't beat an awful, historically awful coach, we ought to hire him. That's what they did. Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech beats Old Dominion 37-17. I don't know that I'm all that impressed with it. They're 2-1 with one loss to Vandy. Of course, I'm sure if you're a Virginia Tech fan, you're thinking, well, hopefully Vandy has a good showing. Nope, they get beat by Georgia State in Atlanta in front of 14,000 fans. And Vandy, a commenter, if you've seen him named Vandy Dandy, wants to run his mouth saying the ACC is a group of 5 conference. Well, Vanderbilt is basically a group of 5 team that can't beat other group of 5 teams. So Virginia Tech 2-1 with an awful loss, though. They're a bad Power 4 team. Slightly probably, are they slightly better than NC State? Probably. Who's the best team in Virginia between Virginia Tech, not NC State, but Virginia Tech and Virginia? You would probably say NC State, but you got to think about it for a second. Wake Forest, a team that I generally have a lot of respect for. Are they on a bye this week? Nope. They got dismantled by Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a top 5 team. Wake goes to 1-2, though. Wake's down right now. I do think Dave Collison is a good coach. The transfer portal has not done Wake Forest any favors, though, and you got to put them behind. Virginia just for record's sake. So let's reshuffle some teams here. We'll drop Boston College into average Power 4 teams. Time could tell that they're an above-average team. It's just that beating Florida State really doesn't mean anything anymore. Yeah, we'll go with that. Florida State. As hilarious as it is to keep clowning on you, and I'm going to continue. After everything that y'all did in my comment section, calling in, crapping your britches, you know, telling me that, oh, we got the best offensive line. Not only do we got the best offensive line in the country, we got an even better defensive line. And then you walk out this limp noodle of a team, and they're still deluded into thinking that if they go to Glenn instead of DJU, that's going to make any kind of a shit. It's not. It's not going to make no difference whatsoever. They get beat by Mike Norvell's old team, Memphis. And at this point, it's not just me trashing Florida State. They are legitimately the worst team in the ACC. They might be the worst Power 4 team in the country right now. They are, just to be fair, what Georgia Tech was under Jeff Collins. Florida State is now under Mike Norvell. Georgia Tech was paying Collins at most $3.5 million a year. Florida State is paying Mike Norvell $10.5 million a year to be the biggest embarrassment in college football. One of the biggest embarrassments in college football history. They might be worse than Georgia Tech was under Jeff Collins. All right. Do you think that Wake could beat Florida State? I think so. There's not a single team in this tier right here or in the ACC that you could definitively say Florida State beats on a neutral site. That's how bad Florida State is. They've sunk all their money into lawsuits now. Now they don't have the money to fire Mike Norvell. They just signed him to a massive extension based on what? He's about to have his third year out of 5 with a losing record. He might win 2 games this year. I looked through their schedule. There's only 2 teams I'd say they could beat. And one of them's being generous in Florida. You think that Florida's probably going to have a better coach by the time they play him in the last game of the year, first of all. I'm never going to get tired of it. Shout out to Memphis. Did anyone think Florida State would be 0-3? I didn't. And I'm pissed at Florida State because now, a 3-point win over them really makes Georgia Tech look bad, even if it was in Ireland. So you're guaranteed 12 games, right? So 10.5 divided by 12. They're paying Mike Norvell $875,000 per game. So for 3 games, let's just say $2.63 million Florida State has paid this moron to go 0-3. Yeah, I guess money is their problem, right? I guess money is their problem. Their recruiting class is going to tank as well. They're going to have midseason opt-outs. They're going to have people transfer out. They might have people opt out in the middle of the season to stay healthy to try and get to a better team, which would be anyone in the ACC. So congratulations, Florida State, for being not only the biggest laughingstock in college football this year, but probably the most embarrassing team of all time. Now Florida State fans are saying, oh, we're just garbage. 2024 doesn't matter. Yeah, okay. Just the entire season doesn't matter. Since we started crying, nothing matters. Nothing really matters to Florida State, says Queen. Anyways, we'll go down the list. No change with Miami here. They're still number 1 in the conference. I don't think anyone argues with that. So 1 and 2 don't change. I think Clemson, that some people might argue with that. I think if you put lines on them playing any of the teams below them in a neutral site, they probably get a slight edge. Pitt jumps, 1, 2, 3 spots to number 3 in the ACC. Syracuse slides 1 slot to 4. Looks like Cal drops a spot, or do they? Yeah, I think Cal drops a spot. Louisville jumps up a spot. Boston College falls, unfortunately, after a top 10 loss, is what it is. So we got Miami 1, Clemson 2, Pitt 3, Syracuse 4, Cal 5, Louisville 6, Boston College 7, Georgia Tech 8, UNC 9, Duke 10, SMU 11, Virginia Tech 12, NC State 13. Man, there were another 12 and 13. Not just that. 11, 12, and 13 were all teams people were saying these are dark horses to win the ACC. 14 Stanford, 15 Virginia, 16 Wake Forest, and no change again. Worst team in the conference. The Jeff Collin Pool Noodle Award winners for this week, the Florida State Seminoles. Let me know if you agree or disagree. By the way, Don't be surprised. Let's look at North Carolina's schedule before we get off here. Because I think it's coming up. North Carolina and Duke. Yeah. North Carolina plays James Madison next week. They better not sleep on them. They play in Durham. Do not be surprised if Duke beats, if UNC takes their first loss to Duke on the road 2 weeks from now. But let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my list? Do you think some people are too high? Do you think some people are too low? Let me know in the comments. Y'all have a good one. Talk to y'all later.